The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to creating conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Wednesday, June 25th, and I'm David Witkowski, retired nonprofit executive and a proud member of the City Club Board of Directors. It is my privilege to introduce today's forum, which is part of the City Club's programming leading up to Ohio's 2026 election. Many may recognize our speaker today, Dr. Amy Acton. For many, when she was director of Ohio's Department of Health, she became the avatar of a calm, data-informed, scientifically based government response to the COVID crisis. In the early months of COVID-19, so many of us tuned in to the daily press conferences she and Ohio Governor DeWine convened. And while she was a calming presence for many, she was also seen by some in a less positive light as the face of government overreach. Undaunted, Dr. Acton has continued to lean into her leadership and set her sights on the governor's office, becoming the first Democrat to announce her candidacy. Before her work as Ohio's public health director, Dr. Acton began her career as the Director of Project L.O.V.E, managing public-private partnerships between Columbus area hospitals and key community stakeholders. She then joined the faculty at the Ohio State University and eventually joined the Columbus Foundation, where she worked to improve the community's health and well-being, particularly in the areas of women's health and youth homelessness. After her work at the Department of Health, Acton returned to the Columbus Foundation and the nonprofit sector. Today, we will no doubt hear more about Dr. Acton's story, as well as her platform and goals she hopes to achieve if she becomes the 71st Governor of Ohio. If you'd like to text a question for Dr. Acton, please text it to 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the program. Now, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Dr. Amy Acton.
Everyone. Oh, hello. Hi. Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be back here again. I forgot about the bell. It brought back the memory. And I was last here in 2019, and I was with Toby Cosgrove, and we had a really lovely discussion on zip code mattering more than your genetic code. And it's gonna come back, that theme is gonna work its way back in here again today. First of all, I know for some of you, I've been starting to go around and meet folks, and I'm gonna stay after, so I hope, if you don't get your question asked or there's more you want to share that's top of mind, I'm going to be here so we can have conversations, okay? But I acknowledge that hearing my voice for some people can be a little traumatizing. It takes us back, doesn't it? I want to share a story about how did I end up being on your TV for an hour and a half every day, completely unscripted, which never happens in politics, as I found out. I joke a lot that I was like the Ted Lasso of politics going in there, but I've learned quite a bit since. And that I want to take you behind the scenes because I was working for the Columbus Foundation. I did not know the governor. I actually got a call out of the blue because someone had seen my work on youth homelessness. We were really at a tipping point in our community. And so the only question the governor ever asked me was about how I grew up. Tell me about your childhood. And so I want to share that with you. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, and I had a very, very rough childhood. Very bad abuse and neglect up to the age of 12. Ultimately ended up homeless in the middle of winter. I want to say that this is not an unusual story. I know others in this room sitting here today as I look out at some faces, and many of you who might not even share that. If 50% of our children in many of our cities are living in poverty, this is not an uncommon story, right? None of us gets through life completely unscathed. But at the age of 12, I was finally removed from that situation. And my brother and I moved literally a mile away from where we were before. We stayed in one place, we lived in an apartment, but I went to the same school for the next 7 years, and my life took a completely different path. I ended up getting in the BSMD 6-year accelerated program at Neo-UCOM, and I was always haunted by the kids I left behind at my old schools who were just as nice, just as smart, but their lives went a completely different way. And I really didn't have the words for it yet, that I was learning your zip code can predict on average how long you will live and what kind of life you will have, so much more than everything I learned in med school. I was particularly formed by the fact of people who either saw me as a kid or the people who I was invisible to. And too many Ohioans right now are invisible. I remember people who would look the other way because it was a little bit scary to see a kid that's like a little disheveled or maybe didn't smell well, right? But I more remember the people when my brother and I would walk to school on the north side of Youngstown that would pull us up on the porch and feed us because they knew we were hungry. And see, that has become the theme of my running for governor. I'm running for governor because people in Ohio are struggling, and we continue to go backwards on nearly every measure because of special interests and bad actors at our state house who keep taking us in the wrong direction. It is time for a change, and I hear this everywhere I go in Ohio. We see record crowds everywhere we go. I have been going everywhere since COVID to every community in this state, and people are ready for a change. Now, I'm almost 60 years old, and when I say we're going backwards on every measure, that's been over the course of my adult lifetime, and we're going to talk about that today. Now, this childhood was very informative. I went to the Bronx in 1990. It was the crack cocaine epidemic, and half the kids were dying in my pediatrics practice by the age of 3. They had gotten AIDS in utero, and I'd become a doctor to stop suffering. And then I recognized that there was this whole other field called preventive medicine, where the whole community is your patient. That's what you were seeing me do during COVID. And you solve the most wicked hard problems. And I've spent my life as a global health doctor and a community doctor working on everything from housing to childcare to economic development and building park systems, getting harmful algal blooms out of our water and PFAS. I've always been solving problems as a public servant, but see, I lead a little bit differently, and that's what you saw in COVID. The way I work is I have to put the hard cards on the table, and that's what we did. I believed in COVID, you could take the truth. At one point, I actually Googled the word pandemic because I couldn't understand why no one was calling it one. You put the hard cards on the table, you get people from every sector around the table because the wicked hard things we face, like housing, affordability, can't be solved by one area alone. It can't be solved by government alone. It takes nonprofits and academics and universities and businesses all around the table trying to row in the same direction. So I am a doctor. I am definitely not a politician, but I have been a lifelong public servant. And see, problems, as I see it, don't really care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. They just need solved. And all too unfortunately, people are making problems these days. The chaos, the vitriol, they're pitting us intentionally against one another. intentionally against one another. So before COVID even hit, we had a really good run of it. The governor and I worked on an opiate settlement where we literally learned from the tobacco settlement where they took a lot of the money that we got in Ohio. It didn't go to help folks get off of tobacco. It actually filled potholes. So learning from that, we did something a little different. From Vinton County to Cuyahoga County, we gave up 55% of cold hard cash, and we put it into an endowment, and now we live off of the interest in perpetuity so that we can treat the next addiction and the next addiction. There are very creative ways you could solve problems. I was honored to work with the governor on that. But then COVID hit. Now, again, it's very rare. I remember being at Metro Health in Cleveland. The very first press conference was held there, actually. And I made you a promise to tell you what we knew as we knew it. And sure enough, Ohioans could take that, and they tuned in every day. I remember the first time thinking, who is going to watch this? No one will watch this. It's 2 p.m. It's the Ohio News Network. But in the end, you guys, it was all of us. You could literally feel everyone there. Just like the cameras we see in the back of the room, all there was one dark circle, but I could feel that everyone was there together. It was a profound honor to lead during COVID. As you now know, we led the country for a while. Other countries followed our press conferences in Ohio. We literally flattened the curve. There's great data now that shows it. And Ohioans rallied in every possible way. We saved a lot of lives, but most importantly, we were also able to open earlier than a lot of places and get back to our lives because we took decisive action. In a situation like that, you are not thinking about politics. The very first thing was saving lives. But it was also how we save our livelihoods. And together, you guys, I want you to know that there is no order I could write that would flatten a curve. What I had to do was tell you the truth. Because you had to solve, from wherever you sat, you had to solve your business, your nursing home, your hospital, your school, your prison, incredibly, your homeless shelter. You had to solve problems you had never solved before in your family's life. And I want you to know, it was Ohioans who saved one another. We fared better than many, many states because you helped save one another. A lot of that is lost in the history that came after. But the truth was, I saw the power of us when we all row together. When there's a clear North Star and an objective, and we all gather around that table and do everything we can together, and telling you that is the only way out of what we face in this state is doing that again. Now, somewhere in the middle, thank you. We know it got political. We know it got ugly. And yes, the hate is real. But I need you to understand in the state, the love was so much greater than the hate. And everywhere I go around the state, I hear stories of heroism. There are so many folks, guys, we're still carrying so much from that time. It is not uncommon. I was just talking to someone earlier today, and she felt bad because she started to tear up. Everywhere I go, people wait in lines for an hour to an hour and a half to tell me their stories. The chaos and the things we've been living in these last many, many years, it's like our amygdala is in fight or flight all the time. And every news cycle, you think your jaw can't drop a little bit further, right? It's harder to get up here to that prefrontal cortex. It's harder to find our way back. But I remember, do you guys remember Not All Heroes Wear Capes? The T-shirts that went everywhere. It was homage, and it helped with youth homelessness. There's something else that happened there. There was a mom who made a sign that said, "Act on love, not hate." And we used to say in those press conferences, there is something so much more contagious than any virus, and that is fear. It is intolerance for ambiguity. Hate is such a much more empowering emotion, right? I get angry, guys. I'm an ordinary human being. I feel all of what you feel. But see, all too often, kindness is mistaken for weakness, and that is a big mistake. Kindness is an age-old, enduring principle. It is in every world religion. It is everything I've ever done my career on. It is about seeing the humanity in one another and about not looking the other way in the face of suffering. That is what we're longing for in leaders. Everywhere I go, people are telling me that they want public servants again. They don't care what party we're in. They want a North Star of a common purpose. They want us solving the problems of everyday life that we all face that aren't political. They're the day-to-day things of cost and aging in place and childcare and how we feel safe in our neighborhoods and what kinds of schools we have. And they want us to do it with common sense and help us find common good again. That is what people are really longing for. Now, I would have kept doing that work you saw me doing, but you did see me step down. It's very important to know it wasn't the hate and the protesters. That had been there all along. I stepped down because once again, the special interests were starting to use COVID as another way to leverage for certain businesses against others. Finally, there was an order that was so egregious I could not do it, as I was telling the gentleman here today, because it would have broken the Hippocratic Oath. It would have hurt people. So I told the governor, I will keep advising you, and I have, up through his last State of the State, still weighing in on many issues, but I could not sign my name to that order. And that person who wanted that order 2 weeks later was arrested in the largest scandal in Ohio's history. And you know what? There's now HBO docuseries. We're filling the whole HBO Max lineup due to our corruption in this state house. But that's the thing in life, guys. We got a Profile and Courage Award from the JFK Library for that. Carolyn Kennedy and Jack Kennedy. Honor of a lifetime, as you can imagine. But see, I didn't do this alone. It is the work we all did together, and that's the kind of leadership I want to talk about moving forward. So what do I mean by we're going backwards on every measure? I am almost 60, as I said, and let's just think about it. We've had 2 Democratic governors. I've gotten to know Dick Sless very well. He's amazing. He still towers over me at some guy like up here still at 89 years old, who just poked me in the chest the other day at a coffee going, be the governor, be the governor. And I've learned so much from him. Ted Strickland and I were just out for a rally for teachers. I'm actually married. My husband's in the back here. That's Eric Acton. He's a elementary school teacher and a coach at the same school in Bexley where he went to since he was a little kid. And you know, public schools saved my life as a kid. I would not have made it out. The other thing was libraries. There was a time I lived in a basement with just 2 twin beds and 1 light bulb, and for like a year and a half. And I would just get a book out of the school library every day. And that's how I knew life could be different. And these are all the things they're attacking. Well, Ted was governor, and a year and a half in, the recession hit. And what I understand from his team is that they couldn't get enough of us in there to take the reins and levers before it was all over. Our House has been Democratic majority twice. That's 4 years in my entire adult life, and the Senate has been Republican the entire time. So this going backwards, we know who has been in charge. But that's what has allowed, by not having that great dynamic, and you add gerrymandering, and the first thing to go are the normal Republicans, right? No, that's just true. The Matt Dolans of the world, they can't do what they do, right? And this is how we got to the pay-to-pay and the corruption that is like some of the worst in the country. We used to be the healthiest state. We used to have the best outcomes. Our health department was like the pride of the country. We now live shorter, less healthy lives than neighboring states and many countries around this world. That is not normal. We have a crisis all over the state in rural hospitals. I was in Peebles County where a woman shared the story of it's an hour and 15 minutes to deliver a baby in this state, in this country, that one woman had given birth to 2 babies on Route 32. This is the same story I heard in Fremont. It was the same story I heard in Sydney and outside of Youngstown. This is a travesty. We have to fix this. We are capable of helping people age in place, and governors everywhere are doing things to have drugs be affordable. There's so much we could be doing, but instead we have some of the worst health outcomes. And we are cutting Medicaid, we're cutting children's budgets, we're cutting SNAPs. It's a travesty. Education was invented in Ohio, public education. In the Northwest Territory, when they chopped up all the little blocks, every so many blocks, one was saved for public schools because it would elevate our quality of life, our standard of living. It would give everyone a chance to realize their full potential. I worry that kids like me won't get that same chance. Right now, in this budget, they're cutting schools. They're not fully funding the full bipartisan funding proposal, which itself was not enough. We just saw vouchers be deemed unconstitutional. Yes. We must. Our public schools are the centers of community, and guess what? This will be a leading issue in this race. I hear it. If you are in rural, women are talking about public schools, the same as suburban women. It is all they have in many parts of the state. It is the way of life. We put communities in schools, we put health care and dental care in schools, and wrap around. We must give every kid a world-class education. Yeah. Let's talk about the economy in Ohio. Our growth in GDP is 45th. And our biggest export in this state is young people. And if you have not heard this saying yet, and this is so crucial, and if you're a business owner, listen and look this up if you have not yet. Gen Alpha, which is middle schoolers and high schoolers all over this country and around this world, have a new slang saying that is so Ohio. And so Ohio, do you think this means something good? It means cringy and weird and Haitians eating pets, which is one of the biggest travesties. They doubled down. Schools were closing. Hospitals were closing. I went to Haiti with the governor and Fran, where they build schools in their daughter's honor, who died in a car accident at the age of 21. This is a travesty. Do you know that the parents, you must read this New York Times article, the parents who lost their son in the school bus accident begged them to stop doing this in their son's name. And you know what happened to them? The same death threats, the same hate, the same vitriol. This is a travesty that we're being pitted against one another like this. This is not the kind of country and the kind of state we should build. So how do we get out of this? If a whole generation, do you think they want to come to school here with Senate Bill 1 and with businesses? Are you going to attract people when a generation has that image of us? We must change this, and we can change this. So how do we get out? I've believed for a long time, and I've been, I'm very blessed. I've been given a voice, and I made this decision to not look the other way because, like you, I've been seeing some things I just can't unsee. In the middle of COVID, a report came out by the Academy of Arts and Sciences, bipartisan look at our democracy, that said this might be, and I'm sure it is now, the fourth founding of our country that we are living through. Not unlike the beginning of our country, not unlike Reconstruction, not unlike the Civil Rights era. That is the time we are at an inflection point. And guys, I've seen under this hood, it can go either way. This is true. And their report, I suggest you read it. They have a wonderful PDF. It's called Our Common Purpose. And the biggest recommendation they made is that we have to rebuild the fabric of our communities, things like here at the City Club. We are dying of loneliness and social isolation, as the Surgeon General said, and the last Surgeon General made a whole report. We have great data over 20-some years. If you remember the book Bowling Alone, with Precursor in the 90s. Robert Putnam wrote that book. We are literally dying from a lack of relationships. And the only way out of this is rebuilding that. We cannot give up on one another. So we need to create a movement of the people, and guess what? It's happening. People are finally seeing that they're tired of the chaos and the vitriol. Now, this is a very expensive proposition post-Citizens United to run for office. So let's just talk about the money for a second. I've worked on gerrymandering with Maureen O'Connor in a bipartisan business group. I helped Sherrod. I went around with Amy Klobuchar doing 2 Amy's for Sherrod last cycle. I worked with candidates you have never heard from. But the fact is, that race of Sherrod's was $500 million. 250 each side, scorched earth, right? You have to raise that money. I'm very blessed. In the first quarter, I filed that paperwork in January, and everyone was hiding in the state, but I didn't even have a war chest. I filed that paperwork, but I just knew that if I came out here and I would look behind me, I'd find all of you there. We set a record in the first quarter. We raised more than any Democratic governor ever. But it came from all 88 counties. It came actually from every state of this country. And the average gift was $23. It is a lot of people who are ready for change. A lot of people. And I'm very blessed. I got trained by a group that's helped every woman governor since Ann Richards. I was approached originally to run for office by Dick Celeste and Sherrod Brown because I have a very strange constituency that does not know party. A bond formed during COVID. It's not explicable. You can believe some pretty wild MAGA conspiracy theories and somehow give me a pass. There are certainly haters out there, but we have had numbers that were run on me by both sides back in 2020 to 3 independent polls now that show me very competitive in the general. One has me up against the opposition of Vivek. And my negatives are capped out at 23%, which if you're not a politics person, I'm certainly not a pundit, that's half of what most politicians have. The hate is there, but actually there's something much deeper there. So that has given me an ability to continue to go everywhere in the state and hear the stories of people. I am deeply committed to co-creating the state that we want to live in together. And you know what? We can build a state. It is absolutely within our wherewithal. We've done it before. Your zip code does not predict how long you live and what kind of life you will have. We must empower people in local communities again. This budget doubled down on every bad thing that has taken us backwards. We have high property taxes right now. My opponent says, let's just get rid of property taxes, which is impossible, as we all know, unless you don't want first responders or schools, and we want our kids to not have a good education and us all to not be safe. But we absolutely have to look at how we tax. And one of the reasons locals are under such pressure is because we're not fully doing the local fund. And we're putting all that pressure down below. We can fix that and relieve and give people more breathing room. We must have people aging in place with dignity in the state. We must, right now there's a proposal, bipartisan, supported by the business community for childcare. It's great for our businesses. It's great for our families. It's not in the budget. It was removed. It is time, though, for all of us to move together in a movement. When Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all the bad guys come to write checks, in Sherrod's race in 1 month, they wrote $40 million because one industry did not want to see him on the banking committee. So I assume that's where we will be in October of 26. We will be there. We will be in a very competitive place. But my dream is that 1.5 million to 2 million Ohioans, When they go to write that check, like J.D. Vance never even broke a sweat, knowing that Peter Thiel was going to write a $10 million check and another one, is that many of us in one day push back and say, you cannot buy our state. Now, one little sidebar. I have a wonderful team. I've been working with some of Sherrod's folks. We have some amazing people around the country helping. We just hired our new finance director, Shelby Foster, right there. She came to us from the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, if you followed that, Susan Crawford, where Elon Musk tried to buy it. And she's also worked with Tammy Baldwin and the governor there as well. But the thing is this, if you don't think 1.5 million Ohioans could push back, let's just begin with 500,000 retired angry school teachers as our baseline. Yay, school teachers, I see you. And 113,000 active teachers. And by the way, in the budget, they're trying to get the teachers off the pension board, their own pension, to have input on their own pension. That is not okay. You add to it all the folks at the VA right now. Government workers are under assault. And in many parts of Ohio, the largest employer is government locally. I'm working with women in rural. Guess what their issues are? Women, by the way, ag is our number 2 GDP. Women own farms, they inherit farms, they do the books on farms, they run the 4-H and the lifestyle of the community. And their number 1 issue, healthcare, because somebody has to work a second job so someone has health insurance off the farm. The second issue is public schools. And the third issue is the chaos and the hate and the vitriol is destroying their way of life. And you know what? One woman said to me during Springfield, when all that was happening with the Haitians, she went to do a prayer in the church she has gone to her entire life, and she was too afraid. That's what has to end. These power differentials, folks, that we have now of extreme wealth, this budget is giving the tax breaks to the most extreme wealth and special interests, and it's doing nothing for everyday Ohioans. The only way you stop bullies, teachers, are the bystanders, right? That's what we teach our kids. The same kids we teach to be kind, that is not weakness, to be compassionate, to be courageous, which doesn't mean you don't ever feel fear, it just means you keep going. The governor and I used to say, when you're going through hell, as Winston Churchill said, you keep going. But we teach our kids all these things, right? But I imagine, again, that the bad guys are so bad right now. We just mentioned Superman. It feels like Elon Musk and some of these characters are like DC bad guys, Marvel comic bad guys. Like, you can't invent this. But see, whether it's the 1930s or the 1870s, the only way this ever ends, ever, is when we, the people, push back. So I, as an 80s girl, watched a little bit of Justice League on Saturday morning cartoons, if you guys remember Wonder Twin Powers Activate. I am a normal person. I am not a superhero, I'm here to tell you. But the Justice League was ordinary people who would discover their powers, whatever they might be. They couldn't even use them, right? They'd try to fly and fall. But they had each other, and together they pushed back. That is how we're going to do it in Ohio. I'm seeing this movement everywhere I go. Look, we must co-create the world we want to live in. Generation after generation, we don't get to rest. So this team is going to be creating a platform, not unlike Deval Patrick, not unlike Obama, where all of us come together. I take you behind the scenes of this campaign. I let you know what it is like to run for governor. I will give you the hard truth. I will always answer those questions. I will set some North Stars, and guys, beyond any issue, and I will be putting forward some of the best issues. But the number one North Star is our humanity, our shared humanity. We have got to bind to one another and pull each other back on the life rafts, just like we did in COVID. It is an honor and a privilege to have served. I am very thrilled to be in this fighting, and I will be with you alongside every step, because together we are going to refuse to look the other way. Thank you.
We're about to begin the Q&A portion of our program. For our live stream audience, I'm David Witkowski, a member of the City Club Board of Directors. Today we are joined by Dr. Amy Acton, candidate for Ohio Governor and former Ohio Director of Public Health. She's joining us as part of the City Club's programming leading up to the 2026 midterm elections. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, as well as those joining via our live stream at cityclub.org. A reminder to keep the questions short, to the point, and actually a question, so we can get to as many questions as possible. If you'd like to text a question for Dr. Acton, please text it to 330-541-5794, and the City Club staff will try to work it into the program. May we have our first question, please?
Thank you for coming to Cleveland, especially to the City Club.
Thank you. Thank
My
you.
question is, I take you a bigger picture. Based on what you experienced with the COVID and politicization of it, what are we going to do at the next pandemic that everybody keeps talking about we will have, as it has become politicized rather than factual?
Yes, thank you. Well, as we know, this isn't going away anytime soon. It's so unfortunate. Just by way of background, the Director of Health has quarantine powers. That was 150 years old. I actually did a docu-series. It's still streaming on PBS with Bloomberg Philanthropies. It's called The Invisible Shield, which is a look back since the Black Plague to modern history. What we don't realize is that we gained 30 years life expectancy in the last century. When my grandfather was born in 1900, you were expected to live on average to 48 years old. He actually lived, he came here to work in the steel mills as an immigrant in Youngstown. He lived to 84. Of those 30 years, only 5 are due to everything I learned in med school. The other 25 years, this is so important to understand, came from things that we can only solve collectively. It started with clean water and safe food. By the way, they're defunding the Lake Project, and H2 Ohio is now being defunded. And we were cleaning up our lake, we're cleaning up our waterways. It came from child labor laws and traffic safety laws and getting rid of PFAS and things we did around public schools and screening. It's all of these things that it takes all of us to solve. And so we are now, we've politicized this. I don't know if you know, but the legislature took over quarantine powers. Now the legislature will decide if we quarantine or not. So this is why we need governors and strong AGs and strong people back in office so that we can reestablish the things that got us here. This might be the first generation that lives shorter, less healthy lives than their parents did. And this docu-series talks about this. I know the health outcomes, you guys do your study here. I just saw Franklin County's life expectancy is going backwards in Ohio. So we have a lot of work to do.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Thank you for your shout out on the vouchers being ruled unconstitutional. Congratulations
Thank you.
to the vouchers hurt Ohio people.
Yes.
The budget is has left the conference committee and it's headed to the governor. If you were governor right now, can you tell us 3 items that you would immediately veto?
So the line item veto, excuse the teacher in me, but 5,000 pages, like I've been there. I learned so much about the levers of governor, and we should talk about that a bit, but that budget comes wheeling in, and this is the one veto that can't be overrode. One of the reasons we must get in with the movement is even this governor is being overrode on decisions he makes. So we need to get a couple more representatives in there to stop that. I would immediately be looking at what is happening in public libraries would be a really no-brainer one, I think. Gosh, there's so much. I mean, it's hard to pick one because the whole thing is that devastating. He can't add in the good things he was trying to do. I think he could line item the parts about creating, I think they're sneaking in language right now. I would line item on the teacher part. I would line on not being on the pension board. I would line item something on the elections that's going in there that has not gone through committee or been allowed to have public testimony. I would line item, there's so many things in this one. The problem is you can't line item the L.O.V.E funding of schools. And so his chance to push back has been passed. The truth is, a budget is your values. And I can't say enough to you, this budget reflects the values of the people in leadership now. Look, it is not going to be easy. Electing a governor is just the beginning. We will be fighting to build task force. I have a group working, a bipartisan group starting to form on economic development and what you would do as a state, and healthcare and what you would do as a state, and education. Budgets should be aspirational, and they should address the needs of everyday Ohioans. Governors govern for all people, just like mayors do. That's what a budget should be coming forward with, and you need to build that budget months before you ever get elected. But a governor has other very, very important powers. I just want to say this so you think about it. I was very lucky to work alongside a governor. For whatever reason, he let me be in, working on the opiate, doing things beyond health. And then in COVID, I saw every aspect of we ran the whole response for all of government, and we worked with every sector and every industry. So I've been able to have a firsthand seat. But the governor also appoints boards and commissions. This is very, very important because the reason Senate Bill 1 could get through so easily is because everything has been stacked over the years with increasingly partisan and far-right people. All of that is something very important a governor could change right away. A governor should be pushing back on what is coming outside of this White House. Governors everywhere are putting things like child tax credits in and school lunches for free and stopping high medical bills for the elderly and helping with property taxes so you can age in place. There's so much great policy that should be in there. But we need a governor to also be a catalyzer and convener. And that is why a governor is so important. In 27, we go after gerrymandering again. The people are being disrespected on that. If you can't get it in 27, you go after it in 30 when we are on all the committees. So all of that is what has to change, and I do hope the governor uses his line item well.
Getting back to what we were talking about before the program started, please tell me specifically what you would do if elected governor to make Ohio a more welcoming place for internationals such as immigrants and refugees.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to say, I strongly believe that diversity is our greatest strength. That is our strength as a state. And do you remember, Ohio was always the test market for everything, right? You could make a Superman here. That's because we are like a little mini United States. I always felt we were shaped that way. We actually are a purple state Gretchen Whitmer said, "You're a purple state." We are lawlessly configured to not be that. We're a very independent thinking group of folks that went, for Obama twice and then Trump. We want change. We want to be independent. Immigrants, again, my family came here, as I am sure many of yours did. We know there are problems with immigration. We know the border has been broken. I've talked to attorneys who work in immigration courts. There's much that was allowed to go awry and needs fixed. And certainly we would all agree that criminals should not be on our streets. But this is a travesty, what is happening. And we need to remember the humanity of people first and foremost. So many immigrants, like the Haitians in Springfield, heralded by the business community, helping save that community. The thought that there are people coming out there wearing masks with all the gear on. We don't even know who they are. They're just showing up. Does this not feel like the Ku Klux Klan to anyone? That's what we're seeing, and that is not okay, guys. That's why I'm saying to you, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. We cannot afford to look the other way.
I'm Joan Spurl.
Hi.
I'm with the Literacy Cooperative, Director of
yes.
Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. We're Dolly's local program partner for Cuyahoga County, and I'm a former kindergarten and preschool and Head Start teacher. Can you please talk about the importance of investments in those first 3 to 5 years of life, and again, how it might relate to the social determinants of health?
Thank you. I have my field of study, preventive medicine, is very developmental, and I think, in COVID, I felt like you literally feel this way, that 11.8 million people are your patient. And I tend to think my North Star, my whole career, was sort of my mission statement, was creating the community conditions in which all of us can reach our full potential. It's all these 25-year things I'm talking about, the social determinants, economic well-being, safety. I've worked on big park systems so that everyone has access to nature. That's great for the economy. It's great for your health. These are the problems. And I think of you from a life cycle, from birth to death, And the early years were really the beginning of my career. I mean, some of my earliest advocacy as a child advocate for Children's Hospital was an early intervention, home visiting programs, again, all of that being cut. And that said, as health director, I was actually, the governor coming in is gonna have to work with the same cast of characters, right? It's still gonna have to work with this president. But what I found is they hate the word public health. But when I would sit down with these legislators one-on-one, every one of them cared about something in their community. They cared about the home visiting and the literacy program in the Dolly Parton Library or the nursing home program or getting lead out. That was a big issue I was working on here in Cleveland. And so for me, though, as I said, and I love the collaborative and I love the Dolly Parton Library, and I believe that has been defunded as well. And if you don't know, that's sending books free to kids right after birth up through, I believe, age 5. Those books saved my life. Parents need help to learn how to use those books, and I love the collaborative for doing the work they do. This is essential. When we have lead in our pipes, you're damaged for the rest of life. This is a travesty. It's actually something we can fix. Chris Quinn wrote a lovely email on that not too long ago, a very holistic thing. The city could take this on in a way. You raised the $100 million, I remember, but I believe, guys, we've got to make this final push all over Ohio. We've got to make sure that libraries continue to be open. They do so many services. It's been in the budget that a certain percent of the state budget goes since Dick Celeste was governor, and that's what they're taking away right now. So yes, I believe that these investments, the governor wanted a child tax credit, that pays for itself over and over again. Paying for Medicaid, Kasich doing expansion of Medicaid, saves us money. We all pay when people are uninsured. This is the work, the public service work that we're supposed to be doing. It should be boring. It's so good. We should be wonking away on policy, which I will be. But that is not what they're doing. The State House has been corrupt and pay to play for so long that many of us don't think it can be something different, but it can, and we have to make it. Can I just say that if Sherrod Brown won and Kamala won, Ohio's still going backwards until we fix the State House.
Hi, I'm Leslie Unger. Last night, a candidate won in the New York mayor race, came from nowhere. Little name recognition, used social media really well and was very present. So I wonder what you and your staff, what lessons you may learn from that win.
Yeah, well, I was hearing about this race from a lot of young people, and a lot of young people all over the country were talking about it. So not just New York centric. Now it helps when you're on a race and it's kind of alone in the featured race. But a couple things I noticed. It was a joyful campaign. And we're gonna have a lot of serious moments in this campaign. There's a lot that breaks my heart daily, just like it breaks yours. But we are creating a movement of us. And I really felt that he was very successful at bringing joy and reminding us his main focus was on costs and everyday issues, whether it be rent freezes or whether it was making sure food was available. It is 80% of what we could be working on, everyone agrees on. Why are we not working on that? They're purposely, wealthy interests are purposely making culture wars to pit us against one another. It is a travesty. We cannot. Don't bite on this. Keep insisting that our public servants get out here and solve problems instead of create them. That's what he ran on. We need young people. In COVID, a little known fact is I got like 56,000 Twitter followers or something like that. Don't laugh, I never have once tweeted. Like my kids made fun of me because I can't work the remote control. Yeah, we are gonna have a lot of young people as a part of this campaign. We're building a whole team. We're gonna communicate differently. But even in COVID, one of the reasons I have so much support from people on all sides of the aisle is that I was often on conservative talk show radio because I would go anywhere in COVID that I could save lives. And we have to do that. I'm going everywhere in the state. I'm talking to anyone who wants to talk. Once you get eyeball to eyeball, I only wish I could do this with every single Ohioan, but we will be using in this new platform we're building a way for everyone to come behind the scenes. You'll see it standing up. We have monthly Zooms where you can see what you can be doing to make a difference, where you can tell us stories, where we tell you all the good and the bad from behind the scenes. But we're gonna have young people doing a lot of our creative messaging. I loved their images and messages.
Thanks, Dr. Acton. Good to see you again. So my question is, you've touched on it a couple of times, there is so much special interest money in politics, and I'm wondering how your campaign is going to be able to push back against that. And then you were just touching on this, but if we are inspired to want to help you in your efforts, what would be the best way to do that?
Thank you. Well, thank you. There's actonforgovernor.com. Which we'll be building out and getting more. There's a video you can share. You can learn more there. Obviously, donating money is always something a candidate needs. When the governor ran, his race, I believe, was like $4 to $8 million range. This race starts at the $40 to $60 million range, just to give you a sense. And it's a travesty. If you think of that $500 million on the Senate race in the state, which they ultimately arms raced up to about the same amount of money, and what we would do in our communities with that kind of money, we've got to fix that. But in the meantime, living in the rural world that we live in, we are very blessed. I have the team that is capable. We will get all the help from all over that we need to get. But I want to see a people-powered campaign. I've had the privilege of being a part of a lot of grassroots, community-based, crowdsourced things in my time. And when that pushed back in October, can you imagine If all the VA workers, all the nurses and doctors, all the people worried about tariffs, all the retired people on fixed incomes, all our first responders, all the teachers, I could go on and on. If we all wrote a check, when they write that $10 million check, the bad guys, we write a check for $10 all at once on the same day and say, you can't buy our state. It matters, even giving $5, but doing it like once a month, that can make such a huge difference. But we will be pushing back. We will be not looking the other way in our messaging. I want to cover a couple myths. If I can just be brutally honest, I got known, New York Times did a video op-ed in May of 2020 that said we were the leader we wish we all had because I was brutally honest, a little bit more vulnerable and with you, and don't mistake that kindness for weakness, but a little bit more about our humanity, and that I asked more of you. So I will be asking retired attorneys who maybe have enough in their retirement, I need you to come back and serve for 2 to 4 years. Business leaders, I need you to be on this bipartisan group that builds the economic development of the future that is much more diverse than what we're doing. I could go on and on about that. I'm going to be asking more of you. Couple things. Some people think a woman cannot be governor and elected. If anyone says that to you, Kansas, guys. Kansas has had 3 women governors. Laura Kelly's on her 2nd term. Remember, John Gilligan's daughter was governor of Kansas. Michigan's about to get their 3rd. That's ridiculous. We need people who can win, who can raise the money, and I'm blessed that I have those ingredients to be very competitive. But most of all, we need people who understand those levers of governor, can walk in there on day one and know exactly the first thing that will happen is trying to get rid of executive power. We need someone who could do that, who cares. And I just am here to tell you that I was unscripted every day you saw me on TV. That's very unheard of in politics. So I'm going to keep being that same person. I couldn't fake it. The first second I did, you would know it. But I will be with you every step of the way. I'm doing this because I refuse to look the other way while people are suffering. I know what we're capable of. I saw what you did for one another, and we'll do it again. So thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Dr. Amy Acton for joining us at the City Club. Forums like this one are made possible thanks to generous support from individuals like you. You can learn more about how to become a guardian of free speech at cityclub.org. The City Club would like to welcome guests at the tables hosted by the Academy of Medicine of Cleveland and Northern Ohio and IdeaStream Public Media. Thank you for being here. Coming up at the City Club, Tuesday, July 8th, we will welcome American Bar Association President William Bay. He will sit down in conversation with Judge Dan Polster to discuss the rule of law and the defense of judicial independence. Tickets are available for this and other forums at cityclub.org. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you once again to Dr. Amy Acton. I'm David Witkowski, and this forum is adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.